Sadhu, 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 sadhu. Let me welcome you to our international Dhamma program, which we are conducting on every Poya day. And today is also a very special day for us. And we are having this program, which we will be really conducting. And we have one of our uh, visiting Buddhist monks from Australia, the Bante Sravasti Dhammika Thero, and who will be speaking on practical meditation. So today, as I said, Full Moon Day, it is a very special day for Sri Lankans, where we commemorate this important day for events to the establishment of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Emperor Asoka, on the invitation of King Devanam Piyatissa, sent his royal daughter Sangamita Theri to the island. The emperor earlier sent his son Arhat Mahinda to introduce Buddhism to Sri Lanka. Sangamita Theri brought to Sri Lanka a sapling of the sacred Bodhi tree under which the Buddha attained enlightenment. This millennia-old tree still thrives in Anuradhapura, the ancient capital of Sri Lanka. Sangamita Theri established the order of the Bhikkhuni, enabling Anula Devi, the sister-in-law of King Devanam Piyatissa, to be ordained as a Buddhist nun. King Devanam Piyatissa's minister Aritta entered the order on a Poya day to establish Buddhism firmly in Sri Lanka according to Arhat Mahinda's advice. Another important aspect of Vappoya is the Katina Pinkama observed for an entire month until the end of November, full moon Poya day. The Vasana Kale of 3 months is ending in October, and we will find that many of the temples will be celebrating the Katina Chivara Puja during this month. So on this very special day, we have, as I told you, the our visiting Buddhist monk from Australia, Bante Sravasti Dhammika. I must first of all thank our venerable priest Kudagammana Seelaratna Thero, who is based in US but now currently in Sri Lanka, and also our Dhamma friend Sonali, who brought to my notice about the visit of Bante Sravasti Dhammika, and where they asked me to contact Hasala, who's been really looking after Venerable Thero. So I must thank them for the very great initiative that they took, and this helped us a great deal in organizing this program. Bante Sravasti Dhammika is here. He came specially to release his latest book, The Buddha in History, Legend and Culture. Now, this was the latest book that was released at the book exhibition that was held. So that really brought Bante to Sri Lanka, and also at that on that occasion we also had the Sinhala translation of Bante's earlier book, Footprints in the Dust, the life of the Buddha from the most ancient sources. This was translated by Kudagammana Seelaratna Thero, and he too was present at this function, and I think it was something that we all appreciate very much for the publication of these books. Just to introduce Venerable Bante Sravasti Dhammika Thero, he was born in Australia in 1951 and became a monk in India in 1976 under Venerable Mattivela Sangaratana Thero, who is the last disciple of Anagarika Dharmapada. Venerable Thero, Bante Dhammika Thero, Studied at Sri Lanka Vidyalaya in Maradana and later at the Kelaniya University's Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies, as was one of the founders of the Nilambe Meditation Center. Bhante has written more than over 25 books on subjects related to the Dhamma and Buddhist culture, many of which have been translated into various Asian and European languages. After 2 decades in Sri Lanka and another 2 in Singapore, Bhante returned to Australia in 2017, and we are very happy to welcome Bhante back to Sri Lanka again, and also to undertake to deliver this Dhamma talk. So, on this very special occasion, as I said, meditation is one area which Bhante has been regularly conducting. So today the topic will be on practical meditation, and I'm sure that all of you are present here will benefit by it. So I will now, with respect, invite Bhante Sravasti Dhammika to first give Pansil and thereafter to commence the Dhamma talk. Sir.
Let us
Let us begin.
begin. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Now I'll say the 5 precepts. Those of you who are sincerely trying to practice them, repeat after me. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinnadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kami sumiccācara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Suramerya majjapamadattana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. And with that, we will start. And before we do, I'd like to thank Professor Wattalawala for inviting me, and also for participating in the International Dhamma program. And it's really edifying to see that people, from all over the planet have an interest enough in the Dhamma and a connection with each other that they would meet regularly to discuss aspects of the Dhamma. So this afternoon, that's afternoon here in Colombo, I'd just like to say something about my experience of Dhamma. I find one of the problems with people practicing meditation is that they go to one Amduru or a teacher and they start practicing that, and then after a few months they go to another one and with problems that they're having or uncertainties, and he tells them something else. And then a new book on meditation comes out and they read it, and that sounds very interesting, so they stop what they were doing before and they do this, and give or take a few years and they're completely completely bewildered. And it seems to me that this is actually more common than it should be. So generally, I don't actually teach meditation. I talk about what I do. And sometimes people find how I present my particular practice useful, or they take parts from it and they integrate that into what they are doing. And if they find that helpful, then I'm very pleased about that. But I'm just going to talk about meditation as I understand it. And it seems to me nowadays that people take up meditation for at least three reasons. The first reason I'd call therapeutic. Somebody has, perhaps they've got a personality problem. They may even have a psychiatric problem. And they think that meditation is going to cure them. And it's understandable that they would think that, because there are so many books presenting meditation as a cure-all for just about everything. And my experience is that the people who take up meditation for this reason rarely improve. If they are learning meditation from a trained psychologist or social worker, that might be different. But if they're reading from a book, or they're getting instruction from a monk who really doesn't know anything about psychology and psychiatry and personal problems, it often simply doesn't work. And so they give up and they think, well, then they try something else, some drugs, or they go to a doctor or something like that. So I call this the therapeutic understanding of Dhamma, of meditation. Then I think that another reason why people take up meditation is, the only word I could use would be impractical reasons, or perhaps better, unrealistic reasons. They've read books about monks living in the forest, in a cave, perhaps up in the Himalayas, and it just sounds fantastic. And the book they last read talks about these profound spiritual experiences, which seem to be presented as if a few weeks meditation and you should be able to attain these exalted states. And they take up meditation, they practice it sincerely, and 6 months later, nothing's happened. So they think, well, this is a complete waste of time, and so they give up. I think amongst modern people, this is an extra serious problem, because we live in a world where we are told that we can get everything immediately. You must have seen those advertisements for exercise machines. So you go to the television and there's an exercise machine, and here's this guy with this fabulous looking body, and his girlfriend looks pretty good too. And then they inform you 3 hours a day and you look like that. And of course that simply is impossible. And I would say that it is very clear from reading the suttas that those who attained profound spiritual states, it took years, it took, I would say, great sacrifice. It took profound and total commitment. And to believe that you can have a 9-to-5 job, you're struggling to pay off your house, you're worrying about your children's education and what have you, and a few months meditation and you're going to attain Nirodha Samapatti or second jhana or something like that, I think it's a mistake. If, on the other hand, you practice meditation and then later in life, when you're retired, your kids have got jobs, then going off to spend a lot of time in solitude may very well help. But to lead an ordinary 9 to 5 job in a suburban area, I just don't think that's going to happen. And I've been with sincere meditators, and listening to them sometimes bewilders me a little bit. One person says, last Friday I attained the 3rd jhana. How are you going? Oh, well, I get the 2nd jhana usually sometime after lunch. And speaking of that, these states are accessible just, in between the coffee break and lunch. I just don't think that's realistic. So I think that should be taken into account. And the third reason I think people take up meditation is what I would call for practical reasons. They have heard that a clarified and focused mind can help them in their daily life, that more mindfulness gives them access to their own consciousness and can help them to become aware of personality problems they have, or emotions that are troublesome, or that they can become a more pleasant person. And certainly there are books on meditation that present meditation in that manner. And so they take up meditation for that reason. Now, in traditional Buddhist countries, such as Sri Lanka, I think that's not so common. There, I think people take up meditation because they're told they should. You're a Buddhist, and so you should practice meditation. And so they do. So I think the same thing happens there, that they will benefit in small ways from their practice, and that's really good. So these are the 3 reasons I think people take up meditation, and all of them have got limitations. Now, then there's another trend in Buddhism nowadays, and that is what I call the Noble Onefold Path. And the Noble Onefold Path is right meditation. So I hear people have come to me quite often and said, "Oh, Bhante, I don't have time to practice the Dhamma." And I always say something like, "But I know you work in a supermarket. Can't you practice the Dhamma there?" And they say, "No, that's impossible," because they think that Dhamma is meditating. Now, the Buddha did not teach the Noble Onefold Path. He taught the Noble Eightfold Path. So if you don't have time, or you're not in a position to practice meditation, that does not mean, or it should not mean, that you can't practice and benefit from the Dhamma. So I'd just like to start by saying that. As for my own experience, this is my experience with meditation. I became a Buddhist when I was about 18. And in those days, at least in Australia, there was nothing about meditation. And I remember being with groups of people and sitting with our eyes closed and thinking, what the hell is this? Others seemed to be sitting still and not moving. I had no idea. And I really think that they were very sincere and dedicated, but they had no idea either. Anyway, I got this in my head that I wanted to become a monk, so I went to Asia. I spent time in Thailand, and then I went to Burma, and then I came into contact for the first time with what I would call living meditation. In those days, you were only allowed to stay, a foreigner was only allowed to stay in Burma for 7 days. So I had the good fortune to meet a disciple of Mahasi Sayadaw, I did some meditation. He asked me, or he told me, if you would like to know more, go back to Thailand, get another visa and come and I'll teach you. And that's what happened. So for the first time I had instructions from somebody who knew what meditation was about. And so my introduction to meditation was what you call the Mahasi Sayadaw technique. So then I moved on to India. I couldn't become a monk in Burma. I would have liked to have done that, but foreigners weren't allowed to stay in those days. So I didn't know what to do. So I went to India, and there I came to know about S.N. Goenka, the famous Indian meditation teacher. So I did a meditation course with him, and that was even better. I found him a very engaging teacher. He explained his particular approach to meditation very clear. It was laid out very, very clear. You were given the reasons why you were doing it in that way. And so for the next 6 or 7 years, I did that, and I did it very regularly, and I benefited a great deal from it. So they were my two experiences with meditation. And then when I came to Sri Lanka, I continued doing that, but I also continued having very good experiences that I met a man called Godwin Samararatna. In those days, he was the public librarian in Kandy Public Library. And I think I knew him for many years, and I think that virtually everybody who met him, locals and others, on first meeting, they sort of thought, he's a real drip. He's always got this silly smile on his face, and he never gets upset, and he doesn't seem to have an opinion about anything, and, a little bit out of touch, But if you knew anything about the Dhamma, and if you spent a little bit more time with him, you very soon came to realize that he was a very special person. And I consider one of the best things that happened in my life was to come into contact with him. And he had been taught meditation by the famous German monk Nyanaponika, who himself was an outstanding scholar. He was an outstanding monk, and he was a living example of what the Dhamma can do for you. He was a wonderful person. And Godwin was very interested, and he was very influenced by K.N. Jayatilaka, who had only died a few years before. I never met him. And it was just about that time that the first books by Achan Chah were becoming available. I think the first one I read was A Still Forest Pool. And this had quite an impact upon me. It was so different from Goenka's approach and the Mahasi Sayadaw approach. Both of those approaches are very structured. You do this on day one, you do this on day two, you do this, very structured. Another thing about them is, at least in the case of the Mahasi Sayadaw technique, I have never seen anybody who taught Mahasi Sayadaw meditation who smiled. They seem to be dead serious. The world is suffering. It's all about suffering. And Ajahn Chah's approach seemed to be not like that. And this very, very unstructured, very natural, very immediate. So Godwin was very influenced by that. And the other great influence on him was Krishnamurti. Now, I had read Krishnamurti before, and I was not impressed at all. Nonetheless, some of his ideas I thought were really quite good, particularly the idea about not having any expectations, being open to any experience that comes. And his second idea that I think was very interesting was the idea of choiceless awareness, not choosing to become aware of this or choosing to become aware of that, but becoming aware of whatever is in the immediate present. And I can't remember when it was now, but when Krishnamurti came to Sri Lanka, Dr. Adhikaram told me, he said, "Would you like to meet Krishnamurti?" I said, "Not particularly." He said, "You're a fool. Probably going to be dead in a few years. It's one chance." So it so happened that myself and two other monks, Krishnamurti was staying in the state guest house. And we went there and we had a talk with him for about an hour and a half. And I found him to be something like Godwin, this very sanguine, peaceful person, very different from his public, how he presented himself in public, where he seemed to be rather bad-tempered sometimes. Anyway, so it was, I think, a combination of knowing somebody like Godwin Samaratna and Nyanaponika and reading about Achanchal. These were the things that had most influence upon my practice of meditation. So that's that. Then what about now? What do I do now? Well, the basis of my practice is three things. The first thing is a type of meditation which seems to me the Buddha talked about very frequently, and yet I don't think I've ever heard of anybody teaching it, and not well-known teachers anyway, and that is the anusatis. So the ones that are, those who know about it, know there's the Buddhanusati and Dhammanusati and Sanghanusati. So they are sort of, you might say, sort of more engaging the emotional side of your consciousness. But then Silanusati, I find this really very helpful. Sometimes to sit quietly and think about the good qualities that you have. And I do it well, this is how I do it. First of all, I think about failings that I've had in the last, well, since I last did this practice, a week ago. I snapped at somebody. I was impatient with somebody. I call to mind anything like that. And I just make a commitment to do better next time. And then I think of somebody who's given me a hard time in the last 7 days. Being a monk, that doesn't often happen, but in fact it actually happened today. I went to, this morning I went to Vihara Mahadevi Park. They have a lovely statue of the Buddha there. I walked up and a man jumped out of nowhere and said, "Take your sandals off." Oh, goodness, I'd walked there with my sandals on. Didn't seem to me to be a terrible crime, but he got very, very annoyed. And I got a bit annoyed at him. So next time, and that was unfair of me. I should have seen the sign. So next time I do this meditation, Siranusati, I'll just think about that. So I start by thinking about my failings, and I make a commitment to do better. Then I think about how others have been unpleasant to me, and I forgive them for that. Then I think about the good that I have done. And I think many meditators, many Buddhists don't do that. They think that's mana. But there are many places in the Dhammapada, for example, where the Buddha says, gee, I can't remember it now, but thinking about your good qualities, your virtues, your strengths, this can give you a certain type of joy. And I don't think meditators should be frightened of experiencing joy. So I think about the good qualities that I have done and I rejoice in that. And then I think about the good that others have done for me and I express gratitude. I call to mind that. So that's one practice I do. Then there are you may know, there are other anusatis. The recollection on death, the recollection on generosity, etc. I won't go into the details, but that is one practice that I do roughly about once a week. The second meditation I do regularly and is the basis of my practice is a well-known one, Metta Bhavana. And it seems to me the structured way of doing that, which is mentioned in the Visuddhimagga, I think that's extremely skillful. You probably know the way. First of all, you think of yourself and you radiate metta towards yourself. Then you think of a loved one, you radiate metta towards them. Then you think of a neutral person, you do the same. And then you think of somebody you don't like, and you do the same. And then the traditional way of doing it is then thinking of all beings everywhere and radiating Maitri in all directions. I do that sometimes. And then sometimes, rather than do that, I think of somebody I know or somebody I know of who is in a bad position. They're very sick, or they have experienced loss or grief or something. I think of that one person and I radiate metta to them also. And I think that the results of that are, I think, very, very positive. And I've come to feel that when people are nasty to others, one of the reasons is they don't have a lot of joy in their life. And so they commit themselves to making other people's life joyless. I think if people have a degree of happiness in their life, chances are they won't go around making other people's lives miserable. So it's something that you can do which is enriching for yourself, and it happens also to be very good for others. So that's the second practice I do. And the third practice I do, which is the basis of my practice, is then mindfulness of breathing. Now it seems to me that although this practice is called Anapanasati, it seems to me that most people think that it's actually supposed to be Anapana Samadhi. So because they think that the purpose of this meditation is to stop thinking. You must stop the flow of thoughts. Now there is a place for that in meditation. In the Vitakka Santana Sutta, for example, that's how the Buddha explains it. But our understanding is that the word sati doesn't mean to control, it means to observe or to watch. In other words, to be mindful of your breath. Once again, I come across people who are meditating and I ask them, how are you going? And they say, oh, I'm going well, Bhante, still got a few thoughts though. They think that meditation and mindfulness of breathing is about declaring war on your thoughts. We must stop thinking. And I don't think that's actually what the Buddha meant by anapanasati. To use your breath like an anchor, as it were, to draw your attention towards yourself, and then become a still watching center, watching the progress of these thoughts arising and passing away, not loving them, not hating them, being aware of them. Sometimes I call this oh, it doesn't matter. Oh yes, I call this Champs-Élysées meditation. I have a brother who lives in France, and when I first went to visit him, I stayed with him in Paris and he took me around and showed me everything. And in the late afternoon, we went to the Champs-Élysées. I recommend it, it's a nice place. And we sat in a coffee shop drinking coffee, just talking, because it's the first time we'd met for a few years. And as we talked, the sun gradually went down and the crowds got less and less. And we just kept on talking till about 9 o'clock. By which time there was almost nobody in the street, and the waiters were looking at their watch and looking at us and, you know, when are you going? And it occurred to me that if you can develop an attitude or an outlook like that, where you just sit and watch the crowd go past, you don't stop each person and say, what's your name? Where are you going? Why are you carrying that umbrella? That's a lovely dress you've got. Where did you get that? You don't do that. You sit there drinking your coffee and you just watch the people come and go. You don't love them, you don't hate them. And you become a still watching center. So now thoughts are not something that needs to be stopped. They're not something that you grab onto because they are pleasant. They're not something that you try to push away because they're unpleasant. You're just in that watching state. So that's what I do. That's my practice. And I have one other approach that I use. It also occurs to me that when I hear people say, I'm going on a retreat, that's an interesting word. So normally we think of somebody retreating, that is, they tried to do something, it failed, so they run away. I think a lot of people meditate in order to run away. I do. Not because they're silly, but that's the way that's what they're told. Now, it seems to me that if the only time you can be mindful and aware is when you're sitting in a quiet room where there's nobody to disturb you, in fact nothing's happening, then you are aware of the least interesting part of your life. Whereas if you were able to be aware while you are actually exactly what it says in the Satipatthana Sutta, while you're coming and while you're going, while you're reaching out with your arm, when you're bringing your arm, when you're putting on your clothes, and it ends. How does it end? he lists a whole lot of things that you should be aware of. And what does it finish with? Somebody tell me. When you're urinating and defecating. Good God. When you're even urinating and defecating. And some people will say, well, God, that's blasphemy. Why? In order, the ability to be mindful of whatever is happening. And I would say any mundane activity that can be done with total awareness becomes a blessing. So this is the other thing that I do. I will consciously tell myself, okay, for the next week, every time you switch on the vacuum cleaner, from the time you switch it on to the time you switch it off when you finish vacuuming, can you do that task? Can you do that job totally aware? And in time you can. You're just not thinking about the past. What it says in the Bhadekaratta Sutta. No past, no future, just here and now. Or sometimes I do this. I commit myself to, from the time I wake up to the time I put on my clothes, I will try to do everything mindfully. So I wake up, go to the toilet, I go to the bathroom, I clean my teeth, etc., etc. Then I put on my andana, then I put on the chivara. That's it. Even that is a challenge. But what I'm doing is I'm gradually integrating my practice into my daily life. And like I said, if you can only be meditative when you're sitting in a quiet room with your legs crossed and there's nobody there to upset you, then that can only ever be a very small part of your life, unless you're living in an aranya, which most people are not. So that's my understanding of meditating. I don't recommend it to everybody because I think there are people with different dispositions and abilities and what have you. But over time, that's how I have developed my practice. That's what I do regularly. And I think that's all I can think of for the time being. So if anybody would like to ask any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them if I can.
Thank you very much, Bhante. I think the meditation and also Bhante's real life experience. So this, I think, is something that would have helped all of us as to how we can adjust our life to go with the meditation that we are doing. So I will request all of you, if you have any questions, please send on Q&A. And I would like to invite Mr. Deepal Suraj is here with us. Deepal, you like to make any comments or questions you have?
Thank you for the opportunity, Bhante. It was wonderful listening to you, and you talk about Godwin. Yeah, I also had the fortune of coming in contact with him, and yeah, it's an amazing person, as you rightly said. I like your metaphor of this still watching center and Champs-Élysées meditation and vacuum cleaning meditation. I sometimes try brushing my teeth, and that 3 minutes is not easy. And I also remembered a very famous Japanese master who said, Zenna in activity is 1,000 times better than Zenna in sitting, as you said, to be mindful in activity. One question, though, I want to ask you, Bhante, is on this metta bhavana. I would like to get some practical tips on this, because I sometimes find at some moments there is metta come out in my mind effortlessly, right? I feel that is far more authentic than when I verbalize. So I have been struggling on this, is it so? How do you do that? I have been trying various things, but sometimes when I feel uh, loving kindness towards some person, I realize that at that moment there was no, almost like, ego loss. It just comes naturally, but it doesn't happen when I keep saying, may I be happy, and then all these things. How do you transit from this structured thing to the real? The word is not what it is, isn't it, Bhante?
Yep. Okay. Well, as it so happens, I'm sorry to say this, but I would recommend my book on the subject. It's called Like Milk and Water Mixed.
All right.
And it's everything the Buddha had to say about love. It's available on Amazon. And I hope
Milk and water mixed, huh?
Like Milk and Water Mixed.
Okay.
Have you heard that phrase before?
Phrase I have heard, yes.
You know where it comes from?
On different places.
Okay, so the story is that the Buddha is in Kosambi and the monks quarreling with each other, a little bit like today, sort of. And he tries to reconcile them, and they basically tell him to butt out.
Yes.
Oh, goodness me. That's what happens. So he's so disgusted with this, he packs up his thing and he leaves. And he goes to a forest where Anuruddha and several other monks are on a retreat. And it's such a relief to come to a place where some monks are doing what they're supposed to do. And the Buddha asked them, how are you getting along? He said, we're doing terrific. We're in complete harmony with each other. And he says, how have you been able to manage that? And Anuruddha tells him, and the whole thing is very interesting, what he says, the practices that they do, but you can read it. But then at the end, Anuruddha says, we are like milk and water mixed. And to understand or to get some idea of what it means, imagine oil and water. You can shake it and it'll separate for a while, and then one comes to the top and the other. But milk and water, they mix harmoniously. You can't separate them. So that's a very lovely term. So I use that for the book. And I try to answer the question that you've asked. Because I've sometimes had people put the question that you've asked in a different way. They've said, Bhante, while I'm thinking, may you be well and happy, I'm really thinking, may you be sick and unhappy. So you put your finger on the problem. Very easy to say, may you be well and happy. Second thing is, you may do it in such a way that it just becomes automatic. This is one of the problems, I think, with structured meditation, but not with metta bhavana. So this is what I do. I only do metta when, for whatever reason, sukha piti arises naturally. So if I'm doing mindfulness of breathing and then suddenly, or sometimes gradually, you just feel very peaceful and very calm and your mood is elevated, that's when I stop doing mindfulness of breathing and I utilize that joyful feeling. So that when you say, may I be well and happy, you really feel it. When you think of a loved one, you really feel it. When you think of a neutral person, you really feel it. And when you think of an unpleasant person, and Buddha Ghosa's recommendation is a very good one. He said, don't think of somebody you really hate. That'll be the end of your joyful feeling. Just think of somebody, and I think most people will have only one or two people that they really cannot stand, that they really hate. But most people have got a large number of people, like your brother-in-law, or whatever. They just irritate you. In other words, you don't hate them. You just think that they're a real goon. Oh, him. You always smile when you see him, but you don't really like him. You think of that person. Now, if you look at this in terms of psychology, that is a very, very interesting. There is a thing in psychology, in therapeutic psychology, called hierarchical therapy. Have you ever heard? Do you know what that is? Well, let's say somebody, they have arachnophobia. Let's say they're frightened of spiders. Okay, they panic. Even when they think there may be a spider somewhere, they panic. So a skillful helper will first of all teach that person how to relax. They may use music, they may talk them through into... And when that person has, over a period of sessions, has learnt to relax themselves, the counsellor gets them to relax and asks them to think of a spider. And the next time gets them to relax and asks them to actually talk about spiders. And the next time they get them to relax and they show them a picture of a spider. And then the next time, this may take a period of weeks or longer, then they show them a dead spider. And then when they're relaxed, they put a spider on them. And if it has worked, so what you're doing is you're training them. Previously, for whatever reason, that person has developed a relationship. Feeling unpleasant, seeing that person. Seeing that person, feeling unpleasant. But now, when you're doing this meditation, you are using joy or sukha and piti. I feel unpleasant, I feel peaceful and calm, and I think of that person that I don't like. So usually the only time I ever think of him is when I'm not feeling good. You see? You've acclimatized yourself that it is possible to be in the company of that unpleasant person and feel okay. The genius of the ancient Buddhists that they thought of that. So I think that joy, piti and sukha is very, very important. So I only ever do metta bhavana when that feeling has spontaneously arisen. That could be I'm walking in the forest and it's a beautiful day and there's beams of sunlight coming through the trees and I just feel very, isn't it beautiful? I just feel it. So if there's a seat, I simply sit down and do metta bhavana. Or if I'm walking beside the beach and the sun's going down and it's a lovely environment. or sometimes music. Music's quite good for putting you in a positive position. Usually people do that and then they just enjoy the pleasantness, which is okay. But if you're doing meditation, you can use that, utilize that to bring about growth and development and spiritual depth in your practice. It's one of those suttas where the Buddha is talking about his experiences before he was enlightened, and he's doing all this Kilamatana yoga and torturing himself, and he decides this isn't working. And in the sutta he actually says, why am I afraid of that joy and happiness that is not related to sensual pleasures? So there's a joy and happiness that need not be associated with sensual pleasure, which can be used in your meditation. So that's what I do. You may find that useful.
Thank you, Bhante. And incidentally, October 6th on this book,
All right. Okay.
it's all about Iriyapata pub of Mahasatipatthana Sutra. Thank you, Bhante. Much merit.
Thank you, Bhante. I will, Uday, you have any questions or any comments that you would like to make?
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you, everyone. No, I don't have a specific question. I really enjoy the conversation we just had, and that's enough for me. That's really good. There's a lot of things to pick up from that, especially how the practical side, which I had never thought about, and I came to know a lot of things that I could be introducing into the practice. Thank you, everyone. Saranai.
Thank you, Uday. Senaka, you have any questions or comments? You have to unmute, Senaka.
Excuse me, Bhante.
Yeah.
You explained the type of experiences that you had Burma as well as in India with Goenka and Sri Lanka with Godin Samaratna. At the same time, you explained that how we had done in Anusati, number 4, and Metta Bhavana, Visuddhimagga. And at the same time, you will explain how we had done mindfulness in breathing, Anapanasati. Last, you explained your own way of the meditation.
Oh, I thought that was going to become a question.
No questions. I explained 7 types of experiences.
So you broke it down.
7 types of experiences.
Bhante, there are a few questions. I will just read it out. One is from Mr. Ranjit Tabru. Reverend Bhante, a very interesting and educative sermon. Would you agree with the concept that meditation is being conscious of every action, within brackets, good or bad, that you experience in your day-to-day life? Also, specific meditation forms such as Anapana meditation are only a training tool. I don't know, you got it?
That's 2 questions?
One question, same person.
Right. Yeah, I think there's more to meditation than just. You must be aware of the simile of the raft. Probably know the story. So there's a man on a journey. He arrives at a river. There's no bridge. So he pulls some foliage off the trees and some grass and what have you, and he makes a raft. And he crosses over the river because he realizes that this side's not very safe. The other side is safer. When he gets to the other side, he decides that this raft has been so useful, he's going to put it on his head and carry it for the rest of his journey. So the Buddha then asks his monks, is he doing what should be done with the raft? And they say, no, it's silly. It had its use, it's got to the other side, you don't need it anymore. Now I know some people, they dump the raft of the Dhamma even before they've started, even before they've got to the river. So you can get that simile wrong. But the purpose of meditation is not to meditate. The purpose of the meditation is to get to a particular state of consciousness where you can move forward. So I think that's as I would see meditation, is its ultimate goal is radical world transcendence. The purpose of Buddhism is not to be comfortable in the world, it's to transcend it. But as I said previously, that's going to take time, it's going to take commitment. So you may not be able to go on regular retreats or live in the forest or up in the Himalayas now. But in doing these basic practices, you're laying the foundations for something later on in your life when you do have more opportunities to commit yourself more fully, or even in the next life. So I see this as a template, a foundation for further practice. So that's what I would say in that question.
Thank you, Bhante. There is another question. I have been meditating for the last 30 years.
Wow.
I have attended many retreats, both in Theravada and Mahayana traditions, but slowly I am losing interest in meditation as I do not see any significant practical advantage.
Right.
I often hear and read in Buddhist texts Nirvana as the ultimate goal of meditation practice. It may be, but for me, it is not a practical solution in my present life, as I feel it is an impossible and unachievable goal, at least for me.
Yeah.
Can you suggest how I can keep my interest in meditation practice, please? And what are the practical and achievable goals? Thank you, Dharma Shakya.
Well, you were online when I spoke about the 3 reasons why many people practice meditation. There was the therapeutic. They've got a lot of mental problems and they think that meditation will cure them. And then the other one is impractical and unrealistic. I think you have probably been misled by meditation teachers. Unfortunately, I would include some monks who are saying, follow me and you'll get the 3rd jhana in 3 weeks and all that, And people are discussing about this jhana and that jhana and they're talking as if they're experts about Nirodha Samapatti and these sorts of things. I think they're just misled. And I think that some teachers who suggest that in your ordinary 9-to-5 life you're going to be able to attain these states, I think they're misleading people, perhaps with the best of intentions. And what happens is people end up perhaps having experiences like your own. You're being told about these exalted states, you've been meditating for years and you haven't even got a quiet mind. Yeah. So what happens is, I think some people then, they get, what do you call it? They get anxious that they're not doing it properly. Look, I've been doing it for 30 years, nothing has happened. They get achievement anxiety. How come? So I would say, what was his name? Who's asked the question? Sakya, is it?
Dhamma Shakya.
Dhamma Sakya. meditate, forget about Nibbana and Nirodha Samapatti and that. Meditate for practical reasons. And I think sometimes the best books on this have got nothing to do with Buddhism. They're talking about how to become more mindful and aware in your life, and this can help you to have better relationships with people and what have you. So if you give up this idea of profound physical experiences in your present lifestyle, then you do yoga. Do basic relaxation exercises, and then take up some of the practices that I suggested. Metta Bhavana. Spend some time occasionally doing an assessment of your behavior. In the last week, was I rude to my wife or my husband? And if so, should I not do better? Should I go and apologize to them? Don't think that that isn't Dhamma, that isn't meditation. It is. If you're working in the public service or something like that, and you're dealing with the public every day, and you tend to get rude and sick and tired of people, and you're blunt to them and that, there's an opportunity to practice the Dhamma. It's called right speech. And people say, I can't practice Dhamma because I don't have time. You can only practice Dhamma in time, and you can integrate meditation into that, and it can make you a more pleasant person, and just as importantly, it can make you a happier person. So I don't know what type of meditation you've been doing, but from your brief description, you've had somebody dangle in front of you profound meditation experiences, which I'm sorry to tell you, simply it's not going to happen unless you make major changes in your lifestyle. So that's all I can say. So give up completely. Do a relaxation course with some commercial person and that, and then gradually, when you learn to relax a little bit, take up mindfulness of breathing. Not trying to stop thoughts, just becoming a still, quiet center and watching your experiences.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhante. Next question is from Lakshmi Pereira. When you meditate, you experience many sensations too. You recognize them as sense of sound, hearing, smelling, feeling, etc. Is it okay to do that?
Well, it's not. I don't think it's a matter of okay. It will happen. Once again, I think. Once again, I've met people sometimes who think that if you no longer hear, see, taste, touch, and smell, that this is some sort of really great meditation experience. But if that is so, it's like stopping thoughts. I mean, it's not very difficult to stop thinking. You just get your larger brother to hit you over the head with a baseball bat, and you won't have any thoughts for hours. Thoughts aren't the problem. Hearing isn't the problem. Feeling isn't the problem. So when I used to teach meditation courses, I used to tell people this. Never once did I ever tell people not to move. Never. And yet, when I would talk to people each day, I would talk to each student each day, many times people would say to me, oh, I moved. I said, I didn't tell you not to move. You have to move, move. I mean, Ajahn Chah said that. Meditation is not a sit-still contest. But there are 3 different ways of moving in a meditation environment. So the first way is like this. I will demonstrate it. You're in the meditation hall. There's 20 people there. They're all meditating and they're all still. And you have this itching feeling on the side of your head. Oh my God. And so you open your eyes to make sure nobody's watching. That's the first way to move. The second way to move is like this. And the third way to move is like this. Now that third way to move is your attention was on your breath. Now the attention is on your arm. What's the difference? Is there something special about the breath and wicked about your arm? No. If you move mindfully, if you're aware of what you're doing, it's not a problem. So whatever the situation presents to you, a feeling, a sound, a thought, don't judge them, don't treat them as enemies, simply watch them. And I can assure you, in time, there will be more and more spaces between each of these experiences. You will never stop them, but they will stop by themselves, or at least they will slow down by themselves. And that's, I think, when people start developing some sort of, rather than meditation being a struggle, now it's becoming something worthwhile. But that perhaps brings me to one other thing I should have mentioned. I think that the best description of meditation practice from the beginning to the end is in the Samanyapala Sutta. Now that path with the various steps on it is mentioned in other suttas too, but in the Samanyapala Sutta it's done in a very nice way. And read it if you have the opportunity. You'll notice that pleasant feeling, joy and happiness is on nearly every step. That's one thing. But two of the steps are, first one is sila. And the second one, if I remember, is Indriya Sangvara. Do we know what Indriya Sangvara is? You do? I'm impressed. What's it?
You explain?
So Indriya Sangvara, this is what Indriya Sangvara is. Not putting yourself in a situation where your senses are really stimulated. So for example, going to a disco. Nothing wrong with going to a disco, but if you wish to benefit from meditation, I would say don't worry about it. Want to meet hot chicks? Yeah, you go to the disco. But you look at a disco. They have these flashing lights. At least last time I went. They have this very loud music, etc. The purpose of it is to not just stimulate, but to overstimulate your senses. And as a result of that, you have an exciting time. But that's not helpful. not helpful if you're meditating. Now, there will be some situations where you find yourself with your senses being stimulated. You didn't seek it out. it just happened. There was an accident just down the road, and then there's a big noisy crowd, and people are shouting, and what can you do? Indriya Samvara is not going out of your way to have your senses overly stimulated. Another example would be turning on the news. I mean, nothing can make you more depressed than listening to the news. Another one is, I think one of my favorites is talk programs. And what do? They deliberately get two people together who violently disagree with each other. And so you, the audience, you think, that's an idiot, what a stupid thing. You're being overstimulated. That's the whole purpose of it. If you get two people who agree with each other, it's not a very exciting program. So Indriya Samvara is that. And that, the Buddha says, both in the Samanyapala Sutta and many other places, this is a very, very useful step on the way to having a more calm and peaceful meditation experience. It's the first small step of changing your lifestyle towards Dhamma rather than worldly pursuits. Ordinary worldly people, they like to be overstimulated, and that's okay. That's what you like. It's not immoral or anything. But somebody who's taking the Dhamma seriously wants to cultivate their mind, and something very useful for that can be Indriya Samvara, guarding the doors of the senses. Anything
Thank you.
else?
One more question from Senet Samaranayaka. Thank you for letting us know about your experience. What do you think of meditating along 7 Bhujanga Dharmas? I find it very useful.
Okay. He said meditating on the Bhojangas, was it?
Meditating along.
Along. Yeah.
7 Bhujanga.
There are quite a lot of what you might call programs that the Buddha lays out for us. I just mentioned the program laid out for the Buddha in the Samanyapala Sutta, but there are other suttas where you very correctly mention that the Buddha talks about 7 Bhojangas, 7 factors of enlightenment, and you find other ones too. And I think the reason why the Buddha taught so many different types of meditation, or at least he laid down so many paths that you can take, is for one simple reason. Not everybody's the same. This is why I became this is why I decided not to continue the Mahasi Sayadaw technique, because it's the same technique for everybody. Or the Goenka technique, because they're both very good techniques up to a certain point. But everybody's different. So the genius of the Buddha is that he lays down quite a few different structured paths with slightly different steps. So you have told us that you have found doing these 7 Bhojangas very useful. What can I say? Keep doing it. But don't think that just because somebody else is doing a different way, that they're doing it wrong. And this is what some meditation teachers, they say, my way is the right way. It may not be. Because there are different personality types, there should be different approaches. I think this was one of the nice things about Ajahn Chah. He didn't really have a structured step-by-step path. A very unstructured and immediate, and Godwin used to say that. he would never tell people what to do. Stop doing that and do this. He would ask them what they were doing, and then he would integrate some advice into the meditation technique that they were already doing. I haven't met too many meditation teachers who do that. Anything else?
Thank you, Bante. Sonali, do you have any comments that you or any questions you have?
No, actually, it was very interesting.
Kamal, 1 minute. Sonali, yes.
Sorry, Sonal.
Oh, Bante, I just want to thank you. It was a wonderful discussion. I really enjoyed it. And I just wanted to mention that I particularly like the Sila Anusati Bhavana because usually we are so hard on ourselves and so the Sila Anusati Bhavana instruction was really very helpful for me. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you found it useful. You put it very well. All the people who I know who take the Dhamma seriously are very good people. They are sincere, they are dedicated, they want to do the right thing. But I also notice that they become very, very moral, very concerned about really little things. You put it very well. They become hard on themselves. I always tell a funny story. You want to hear a funny story? Of course you do.
Sure.
I knew a monk, he was a Suduhamduru, and he was a profoundly unhappy person. The Dhamma, or at least how the Dhamma was presented to him, had made him a very unsmiling, unhappy person. And he was extremely strict at practicing the Vinaya. And one day this was actually in Colombo, in Wallawata, a temple in Wallawata. And one day he just looked so miserable, more miserable than usual. And I said to him, "What's up with you?" And he said, "Oh, I've been breaking the Vinaya for the last 5 years." I said, "What? I've never seen you do it." "Oh, no. I can't remember which rule, Pachitias, number 24 or something. I can't remember what it was." But he said, "Oh, I've been breaking it for 5 years and I've never confessed it." I said, "Which rule?" He said, "Touching gold and silver." I said, "Money? I've never seen you touch money." And he opened his mouth and he pointed to a gold filling on the back of his tooth. So here he is agonizing, creating problems for himself over some little minor thing. Don't do that. Don't let yourself off lightly, but don't be hard on yourself either.
I just have a quick follow-up question with the Sila Anusati Bhavana. Do you practice it on a regular basis, or is it when you feel like practicing, or how does that happen?
I do it at least once a week, but I won't always do the same one. Sometimes I do Marananusati, which I find can be helpful also. So it depends on how I feel, but I make a point of doing at least one once a week.
Thank you, Bante. Can I, Bante Sila, are you there? Bante Sila, if you have any comments or any questions you like to ask. Bante Sila? 1 minute, Kamal. This one.
Well, maybe we could ask Kamala.
Okay. So we have now come to the closure of our Dhamma program. We have our committee member, Mr. Kamal Milavira, who is based in UK. He will now pay merit and thank Bante.
Thank you, Dakshin. Bante, Saraswati Dhammika Teru, much merit to you today for joining the International Dhamma program. And I hope that this will not be the only opportunity you will join us, and hope you be with us again and again. The Dhamma talk on practical meditation was very educational for all of us.
Good, thank you.
For me too, because I'm working in the UK. Today is a working day, and I was very pleased. We had over 167 Dhamma friends joining us from all over the world, including Bhikkhunis and few Bantes too. So I think that shows the importance of your topic, practication. So we want to thank Sonali for arranging and inviting Bante Sarasi Dhammikateru for the Dhamma talk. Thank you, Sonali. And once again, thanks all the Dhamma friends who participated, and also to Professor Lakshman for organizing the Dhamma talks every Friday under the International Dhamma program. And to all our panelists, including Deepal, Mr. Senaka, Vijay, and Lalit, and everybody else. Much merit, and have a lovely evening. Sad.
Thank you very much, Kamal. Bante, we normally close by paying merit to the Devas and the departed. Bante could kindly undertake that.
Akasanta ca bummanta deva naga mahindika punyang tang anumodetva tirang rangkantu sasanang Akasanta ca bummanta deva naga mahindika Punyang tang anumodetva chirang rangkantu desanang Akasanta ca bummanta deva naga mahindika Punyang tang anumodetva chirang rangkantu mang parang ti.
Thank you very much, Bante, and much merit to you. I must also tell our Dhamma friends that Bante will also be giving a Dhamma talk, that is at the Servants of the Buddha at the Maitreya Hall down Loris Road. If you are interested, kindly let me know, or you could come on. We are starting at 3:30. I think it's normally we start at 4:30. I don't know whether Bante's talk might be a little early. Just 1 minute, please. Yeah. So, 4:30. Yeah, so it's a normal time that we have our Dhamma talks at Servants of the Buddha. In fact, Professor Manori Senanayaka, who's the chairperson of the Servants of the Buddha, told me. So I thought that I will invite all of you all to be present for the Dhamma talk, where you'll be able to speak and meet with Bante in person. Thank you very much. So Bante, we are very grateful to you because during your visit here to Sri Lanka, where you have spent 2 decades in Sri Lanka, and also maybe interaction with many of the leading monks in Sri Lanka and also the lay people. And today's topic was of great importance to all of us because meditation is an area that not only that you could do it by yourself, but also in your normal life and work, where the practical meditations could come in. So that's really, I think, Bhante's meaning of practical meditation, where in the normal life that one could really undertake it. So we are very thankful and we pay much merit to Bhante and also for sparing Bhante's valuable time to be with us and to give this Dhamma talk. And I must also thank our Bhante Srila and of course Sonali, who initially gave us the contact, and our friend Hasala, who is really looking after Bhante during his stay, for kindly agreeing and getting Bhante to accept the invitation. So we pay much merit. Just mention
Footprints in the Dust is available on Amazon.
Oh. You like to tell that, or you want me to tell?
Yeah. I'll just mention maybe
of interest to you is you can hold it up.
that this is.
No,
Where is it?
you see how you can.
Oh, there
now
it
right,
is.
now right.
Oops.
Right.
Why did that not? This is
now right, now.
this is the cover of the Sri Lankan edition of the book. The other one is available on Amazon if you're interested, and there's also Venerable Seela's excellent translation into Sinhala is available in Colombo. Oh, that one's okay. And this one just came out on the 3rd.
It should be available locally.
It's available locally, yes. And it's not really about meditation. People have said to me, why don't you write something about meditation? But there's already many very good books on the subject. This one is really about what the Buddha was like as a real historical person. That's all.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, 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 and we will now close our Dhamma talk. Thank you, and thanks very much for everyone who have been listening, and also for all those who have supported us and been present, especially Mr. Deepal, who especially made come and make the questions, and of course our committee members, Kamal, Senator, Lal, and the others, also Don and Ru from UK, and of course Sonali, who's there from the US, and Uday, and the others who are present also from the US. So we have a really a large number of audience from overseas. So I'm very thankful that Bhante was able to give this Dhamma talk to all of them. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.